of course, all the way to DRC. As you are aware, Kenya has built a standard gauge railway from Mombasa to Nairobi and to Naivasha, and we're currently working on the 262 kilometers to Kisumu and an additional 107 kilometers 2C section to Malaba. And because it's a regional project, we work and synchronize very closely so that we are in sync, and Uganda is not so much ahead of us as a network that does not, basically is not built in sync, will not deliver and be optimized, as it were. So we work very closely with South Sudan, with Uganda, and really ensure that we quickly, like we've promised over time, to finish this particular infrastructure. From Kenya, you are aware we are keen to move. Uganda is already making progress, quite some good progress. We do have a very clear program, and we are seeking and consulting various development partners on some of the financial closures that we need to finish to make sure that we are able to fund this piece of infrastructure. It's not a cheap infrastructure development, but luckily from Kenya perspective, we have the 2% railway development levy that we are anchoring on to be able to support this investment, even as we look at other development partners to support us. So, subject to the consultation and the results from the technical teams this morning, we are seeking to break ground in the shortest possible time and ensure that we do accelerate the development of this infrastructure. As you may be aware, members of the Fourth Estate, for example, Kenya, in this month handled the highest volume of cargoes through the train or through the railway system, some 640 million tons from an average monthly of about 500 million tons. And therefore, we need to quickly ensure that the cargo that is destined to the destination of Uganda, South Sudan, and other regions all the way to DRC are facilitated. We need to reduce the pressure on our roads, reduce the road accidents, but more importantly, the railway has got a better carbon footprint because we are able to haul so much on the railway line as compared to the roads. So that is what we've been doing this morning. It is a very critical project for the region, for Kenya government to ensure that we do complete this piece of infrastructure. And as the host country, with the advantage of hosting the Mombasa port and servicing our brothers in Uganda and South Sudan, we need to accelerate the development of this corridor and support the movement of goods, ensure that we are a competitive region, as it were, with respect to the global village we live in today, in terms of being a region that is a least cost, or that attract global firms to do business from the perspective of the cost of doing business. I want to leave it at that and see whether we can take specific questions. But as the host country, I don't know whether, let me allow one of my colleagues, Fred Waziri, to make one or two comments, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. My elder, the Minister, the Cabinet Secretary of Roads and Transport here of Kenya, and the one from South Sudan. We are here, as he has told you, Uganda, Kenya, and South Sudan. We are now at a level of ascertaining business. When I talk of business, that's what our countries need. Here we're talking of rail transport. We know in East Africa, we invest a lot of money in repairing roads. Why? Because most of our cargo, we have been taking it by road. And also the roads are congested because the passengers compete with cargo. Now, what we are here now, we want cargo to move from Mombasa, it comes to Nairobi, it goes to Naivasha, it has to Kisumu, comes to Uganda, through Malaba, it goes to Gulu, it goes to Nimule, up to Juba, that's South Sudan. Then there we can also tap into the market of DRC. There are a lot of things Kenya needs from DRC, and they have to pass through Uganda. They can get through South Sudan. There are a lot of things these people need from us. So all these commodities, we can give them to our people cheaply if the cost of transportation is reduced. How it can be reduced? That's rail transport. Because rail transport, one, it can carry a lot of cargo. When you carry a lot of cargo, the transport cost will reduce. There's also the time. When you transport cargo for a very long time, a lot of time, 4 to 5 days, indirectly the cost will come on the commodities we sell. So that's why we are here, and we came here to see it, to confirm the business. We know it is there, but we have given ourselves 9 weeks, people to study and see the business we have in mind and what we are seeing. Is it real, what is there? At the end of the day, this one will come true, and once it comes true, the economic status of the 3 countries will not remain the same. And we are happy. We have seen the minister giving commitment that they are also in high gear very soon to do the stretch from Naivasha to Malaba, because even as Uganda, we are constructing from Kampala to Malaba. So thank you very much. Thank you.
So that we can build the line in 2 max of 3 years. What are some of the things we need to do? Because financiers or lenders will require of us to meet certain covenants. So those are the details, things we are delving into to ensure that even as we talk to bankability of the project, there's quite a bit of social investment, because investment in infrastructure to open up a country does not necessarily many times need to meet profitability. Otherwise, we'll never build roads, we'll never build the railway lines, because that's how you grow a country. You open up the country for movements of goods to market, and therefore there is more of financial return on investment, but there is more economic return on investment. In fact, the broader growth of the economy. And so those are the things we are looking at, so that we can look at, even if it has got a 2% financial return on investment, what is the portion that is more social? But more importantly, what is the economic return on investment to the economy, because of the broader sparring of the economic growth in the various sectors, taking goods to market and so on and so forth. So those are the things we are delving into to be able to. But in terms of really a government having a very clear path on how to finance, we already have that 2% RDLF Railway Development Levy, which we have done financial modeling, and we are good to go. We are then synchronizing with South Sudan, working with South Sudan. And more importantly, what we are doing when you had the 9 weeks is looking at the volumes, updating the volumes of cargo that will move on this corridor. How much do we think will stay on the road? How much do we think will go to the railway? And more importantly, how will that, from the perspective of freight, if we want to do a freight concessioning? You know, we are also doing the railway bill in Kenya, which will seek to really unbundle the infrastructure from freight. And therefore, what kind of revenue will we get from freight? And can that revenue support and accelerate the revenue side, which we can basically backstop or be used to backstop the financing. But as it were today, we can start, but we don't want to start and run the project for 6 years. We want to be sure with the financiers and the lenders that if we start, our inflows can support us to be able to do that project in the shortest possible time. Jimmy, we don't necessarily have to increase We recently got a small increase from 1.5% to 2%. We've done the financial modeling, and for now we are good with the 2% from the Kenyan perspective. In terms of going to market, as to whether the market will allow us to service the infrastructure borrowing for this particular piece of project for 10, 15, 20 years. Railways really are long. I think they depreciate over what kind of length of time. I don't think in our financial whatever we have a depreciation. Maina, do you have a depreciation? The way we say depreciate vehicles for 5, 6, 7 years. So railways should attract long-term borrowing, and we are looking at 15-year facility, and therefore the 2%, Jimmy, for now in the financial modeling that we have done is adequate to support us. So those are the details we are delving into. In fact, for us as ministers, we're basically asking the technical teams to quickly finalize some of those studies so that we can break ground as soon as possible.
There's a question around whether you're going to do it jointly or
each country is doing their part. The point really is you don't want a situation where Uganda has done their part and they are stranded because Kenya has not done its part. So even as we do, each country does their part, we have to do it in a very coordinated manner so that the time to deliver for purpose of connectivity to market is about the same time. That's why we have to really coordinate and work as a team. Can I take the next two questions?
Yes, I'm right. I go for the one question. Is it travel only that we are looking at, or at some point we have the 1% passengers within the corridor? And if so, are we looking at introducing electric mobility within the same time?
Thank you, Koech. Can we take the next one so that we can also take the two together? Let me start with Koech as whether is it only cargo, is it, once you build, and when I talk about unbundling the railway business, and there's an act which has gone through public participation, it's heading to Parliament. The draft Kenya Railways bill, we'll probably call it 2026, is seeking to unbundle the infrastructure from the cargo. And what does that do? The what you call freight concession. What that does is basically, like on the road today, we build roads and anybody can put the car on the road and pay a toll. So railway can own the infrastructure, and you can then really come in with your locomotive and run your locomotive on the railway and pay a toll to the infrastructure owner. And so the question, Koech, of whether we're going to be doing cargo, whether we're doing passengers, obviously once you build the line, you do everything on the line, not just cargo. We can actually have private companies being concessioned to move their cargo on the railway using their own locomotives and paying a toll to the infrastructure development and maintenance. And therefore, of course, we'll have several passenger services on this particular line, manage the signaling to be able to optimize the use of the line, and then so on and so forth. The way to go, this morning we had a consultative meeting on the e-mobility. That was a Kenya affair alone, and we are trying to move very quickly on e-mobility as improve our carbon footprint, but more importantly, reduce the cost of doing business. Our cost of energy in Kenya, I was previously Minister for Energy. The cost of energy in Kenya is what it is because of generation of electricity using diesel. It is 3-4 times as expensive to generate power using diesel, a dirty fuel, which is the cause of the challenge of the environmental challenges we are seeing today, and yet we have abundance of wind, abundance of solar, abundance of geothermal, generating at less than 10 cents US, whereas diesel generates at a high of 30 cents. And therefore, you can imagine if we are running our economy using wind, solar, and geothermal in vehicles, in the train, and so on and so forth. So going forward, because of the very quick maturity in the e-mobility, we do also see the railway and other services going into e-mobility. Furthermore, we import diesel. For Kenya alone, we spend what, 500 million US dollars on the imports. We take that from our import cover to import petroleum products into this country, and yet we could leverage on our own source of energy. You don't necessarily have to have petroleum to run an economy. We can run it on wind, we can run it on solar, we can run it on geothermal, which is fully developed, and more importantly, renewable and great for the environment. So we will get there in terms of moving quickly to leverage on the green, improve the carbon footprint, but more importantly, reduce the cost of doing business by bringing down the cost of power. Jimmy, again, your second question was?
I just wanted to know,
The timelines are, like I said, and I want to cover that with a question again that came from Vincent, in terms of timelines and what South Sudan is doing. I think the most important thing when you spend time, and when we spend time to understand what we are doing on the railways draft bill, in unbundling the infrastructure from the freight, the cargo, is to understand when you build an infrastructure, it's not so much that it belongs to South Sudan or it belongs to Kenya or it belongs to Uganda. How much cargo is going to be moving on that infrastructure? And therefore, whether South Sudan builds immediately, we want, whether DRC comes on immediately, how much cargo can we get from DRC? How much cargo is available from South Sudan? How much cargo is available from Kenya and Uganda? And therefore, when we build this infrastructure, the traffic which will be on the infrastructure, which will be on the rail, is what really makes the rail a bankable business. And therefore, we are looking very closely at data. This is why we talk to the 9 weeks to basically put in the data together. The data that has moved historically, the data that is likely to move, that is moving today, and the data that is likely to move in the future, contextualizing the policy change that may need to move more cargo to the rail from the road because of the carbon footprint. And so we are working as a team to basically make what would otherwise be a social investment in the short term to be more commercial and therefore be more bankable, working with our lenders.
do you have a keeping time of the roads that you're looking for infrastructure?
We will basically look at financial markets and the instruments that are available from the financial market in terms of a mix of everything, leveraging, of course, on the revenues and the fact that even as we talk to the cargo today, I did say we moved the high 640 million metric tons in the last month. And yet we are only moving 20% on the train of the cargo that lands in the port of Mombasa. Suppose we were moving 30%, suppose we were moving 40%. Will the policy shift from what I've spoken to in respect to what we are doing on the railway bill, improve the revenues, and therefore be able to? So so we're looking at many financial instruments, including leveraging on the clear revenue stream that we currently have to be able to break ground. And we want to break ground almost immediately. The sooner we agree with the lenders, we should be able to break ground and start the construction of the 2B and the 2C section.
How much are you looking for?
Like I mentioned,
man has a lot of questions. Stop at that.
Let me just take that last punch. Let me just take that last punch. I think, the numbers that we are looking at, and we are working on optimization at the moment from Naivasha to Kisumu, based on a kilometer of infrastructure, or dollar price per kilometer to Kisumu is about $3 million. And then on the basis of that, you can see what Kisumu, Malaba, and the rest of the corridor can cost us. Let me thank you, and karibuni. Asante sana. Can we do it offline?